All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock, and we'll have the roll, please.
Mr. Edwards.
Here.
Mrs. Grant.
Here.
Mr. Cuomo.
Here.
Mrs. Lee.
Here.
Mrs. Sack.
Here. Are there any additions, Ryan, to our agenda?
Nothing that I have not communicated.
Okay. Very well. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented to us? Moved by Dora, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ken. We'll have the roll, please.
Mrs. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Mrs. Sack.
Yes. And we'll go on to the approval of the minutes of our March 13th or March 15th meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes submitted? Moved by Israel, second. Second by Dora. Have the roll, please.
Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mrs. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Mrs. Sack.
Yes. And Mr. Keller, we move on to you.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Hi.
And I will tell you that there's really not a whole lot to update everybody on. We did move our last week's meeting that was over spring break to this week, to tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. So we will talk about, the agenda is basically just looking at summary of this year and expectations for next is pretty much our new discussion. We also have a site visit where we're going to come back together, Ryan and I, because OTES for me is now pretty much wrapped up. So we're going to come back together on Friday, at least that's the hope, to kind of work through the rest of that worksheet. And that worksheet is the compliance worksheet, which is what gets uploaded in June. Currently, we are, and it's not me, keep in mind, as it has been in the past, but there is a lot of work being done for the upload in May, which is the quality practices upload. And at this point, we are, I would say, in much better shape than we have ever been. With your guys' work, with everything going to electronic or digital copies instead of a big binder that we didn't have to scan in, as well as just a lot of organization that's going to really help us out when we do our uploads. The one thing I want everyone to understand though is these uploads, you would think nowadays you could just drop a folder in a place in Epicenter. You cannot do that. It is line by line. So it's tedious more than anything.
A copy and paste?
Well, it's you move, like say you have a folder and it's got 15 things in it.
Yeah.
You have to move it line by line, but we're trying to get it so that you can drop the entire folder in its area. But we only know of one guy that's done that, and Diane was working with our attorney to get in touch with him to see how to do that in the future. But that's how I used to do it, line by line. And the good thing about that is you had everything uploaded. But it is tedious, but it is going well. And I look forward to tomorrow's meeting for sure.
Very good.
Any questions?
No, other than, were you able to go to that meeting
Tomorrow.
at 8:30?
Depends on, it's here at 8:30. Here at 8:30, yeah. I can try to make that a little stronger in the morning.
Can you text me? I'm supposed to accompany somebody to a doctor's appointment, but I anticipate waiting a half hour before we can get in to see the doctor. So it'd be possible for me to be here or have PT at 7:30.
And I would venture to say it's going to be a fairly quick meeting, I would think. I know we got testing next door, so I got to kind of be in
Okay.
and then kind of be out just to make sure that testing goes well.
Okay. Could I even attend by phone if you can't see?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't see a problem with that. You right? Kelsey?
So just let me know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll attend by phone.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, you have the agenda, so you know what it looks like, and we'll just go through that agenda
Okay.
and probably have a few other conversational side notes. But as you can see, I have daddy duty tonight. So I
Oh,
was originally,
fortunate you are.
I was originally thinking I was calling in by phone, but Judy's practice got canceled. So little woman's with me, so we're unfortunately gonna have to slide on out of here. But
All right.
I do thank you and keep up the great work. Appreciate
you.
all that you guys have done.
Thank you and have a good evening.
Hey,
All right, we'll move on to the board member and liaison reports. Under President's report, I just wanted to indicate that this kind of goes under legislation as well. This coming Thursday, Representative Glick, who lives in Vickery, is going to be coming to visit the school. And I was gonna let you know that too.
what's that?
Representative Glick, who represents our Sandusky County.
Yeah.
People is coming here on Thursday morning at 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Thursday, so the 21st.
Yes, to tour the school.
Awesome.
So if you wanna do a quick drop
Yeah, we'll
in,
have to talk about that tomorrow because Ed may want to stop.
I thought so too.
So, all right, we're good.
All right,
We'll
very
talk
good.
about more. Thank you.
All right, you're very welcome. So anyway, Representative Blick is going to come, he wants to tour the school, we arranged that, Ryan will be available. So he can see kind of what's going on. The other thing that I wanted to report was, in addition to those communications, we've been meeting on terms of personnel. And Israel has information to report on that. And we have discovered that there have been some documents that we're trying to find in terms of past minutes through at the beginning part of COVID. So we've been working on that and as well as policy. So that's all that I have to report. And Jackie, did you have anything? And professional development? This time?
No, but I will say I have contacted Tony to move it.
Oh, very good.
So hopefully she's gonna get back with me.
Okay, very good. And obviously your meeting was canceled, so you didn't have anything. And Israel, we'll leave it to you.
All right, so if you look in your packet under personnel report, we have action items A through E. I'll read through them. Action item A is a recommendation to approve administrative staff exhibit B as presented. For B, a recommendation to approve non-administrative staff exhibit B as presented also. Number C, we have a recommendation to approve Ryan Bone for a 230-day contract as superintendent / principal effective for the 2022-23 school year. Value of the contract to be $120,000 with benefits included in administrative staff exhibit B. Under D, recommendation to approve Kelsey Cromer for a 230-day contract as treasurer effective for the 2022-23 school year. Value of the contract to be $75,000 with benefits included in administrative staff exhibit B. Action item E is a recommendation to allow their superintendent / principal Ryan Bone to be paid for 13 unused vacation days for the 2021-22 school year, which are in addition to the days already permitted in administrative staff exhibit B.
Ken's question was if he could vote on it. And I said he could because it's not specific. But me vote on it because it's not specific to individuals.
Yeah.
All right,
So,
busy guy.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve items A through D of the personnel report? Moved by Dora, is there a second? Second by Jackie. Any discussion? I ask that you, when we will be referring back to these exhibits, if you recall in our contracts, exhibit A, we have the contract. We have exhibit A, which are job descriptions that we've already approved, and exhibit B is the benefits for the employees. We'll have the roll, Kelsey.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Paloma,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. All right, Kelsey.
Your packet for me has I think the Delta page on the front, the Delta Dental. So I just wanted to present briefly, we got our new insurance rates. Delta remains the same, those didn't increase at all, and I was very happy to see, if you look at the Jefferson Health, the increase is only about 5%, which is significantly lower than last year, so that was a relief. That is less than what I predicted, for our 5-year forecast, so, good news. If there's no questions over those, we can go ahead and move past the minutes. Here I've got the agenda for our annual Title I meeting. Since we have no parents here for public participation or any questions, I'm just going to briefly touch on what we're currently spending our Title I money on. Right now it funds the salary and benefits of one general education teacher, that's Joe Carney, our English teacher. We also fund the Reach for Success program through this, and I'm going to be looking forward as the ESSER money disappears in years coming. I'm going to be looking to pay for tutors through this as well, as much as we can, because I know we really want to hold on to those positions. Does anybody have any questions about the Title I? Next, we've got our cash reconciliation for the month of March. And following the reconciliation, we've got our disbursement summary. There wasn't anything in particular I thought needed pointed out, except for on the second page of the disbursement summary. If you go all the way to the bottom and right above Kristen Fallow, I just wanted to clarify this Claris International, because that's not an expense we see very often, and it is for about $2,000. That's our XD renewal. That's the program that Steve Ladd created that we're still keeping our subscription for, so that we can continue to take records from it and have the records of our students that are still stored there.
We have done a lot of work with extracting the data from XD. Charlene and Tori have been working throughout the year and extracting that data, the student records in terms of hard copies as well as digital files and saved. But it is something we do want to still have access to.
Following the disbursement summary, we have the outstanding disbursement summary. And then you'll flip to our spreadsheet for the month. If you look in the top right section at our revenue, you can see we've got that tuition vocational expense of $47,401. We looked at that on our March foundation payment last month. That was those other adjustments that had to do with students going to eHoly. Our state funding was $392,350. Career tech funding was at $77,000. Our revenue is percentage-wise, we're sitting well for the year. Below that, in the bottom right, we've got expenses. Nothing too out of the ordinary. And if you look bottom left, our total percentage of expenses currently sitting at 60.61%. 9 months of the year, we'd expect to be at about 75%. So expense-wise, we're sitting pretty well. I will comment that with this maintenance of effort expenses that we're going to see, like we're going to make a Chromebook recommendation tonight. We will see some of these inflate a little bit, like the Chromebooks are going to be considered supplies, so we might see a higher month of supplies next month. But as we discussed, it makes more sense to buy things for the students than it does to just pay money back to the state. So we might see some of these expenses inflate a little bit, but it'll better serve our students than just paying that money back. Finally, at the bottom to the right, you can see we came in at a positive of $279,195.
That's just always good.
That's what we like to see. Your next page is our April foundation payment, and I'm going to ask that you actually set it side by side with the sheet behind it, which is our March payment. I guess I shouldn't have stapled your packets if I was gonna ask you to do that. My apologies. So you can see our April foundation payment is significantly lower. I spoke with James Landon, who is the head of the community school foundation funding, on the phone to go over why this is so much lower. If you look in the furthest right column under monthly payment, that first number, that's where you're gonna see the big drop. We went from 335,000 to 91,000. And I'll show you where that comes from in a couple reports I've got them printed for you, but that our base cost went significantly lower due to an error on the ODE's formula. My fears, I think, with their funding formula errors were significantly worse than this. And I did update our 5-year forecast, and for the year, we still look good. So it does look like a really big impact. It's not gonna affect our final year standing as significantly as what it might feel right now. We'll take a deeper look into the 5-year forecast next month when we approve it, but I just wanted to kind of update you that I did go ahead and update that based on the information they've given us. It's not as huge of a hit for the year as what it seems. I mean, it is a significant amount, but we'll come out okay for the year still.
So you see it going up, is that what you're?
No, our funding for the year is going down, so it's about 700,000 less, but when you look at the forecast and you look at like our totals for the year, we're still above 5 million for the year at the end of the year, so.
And we kind of, you had warned us that the adjustments would probably be coming in future
Yeah,
monthly payments, so we kind of anticipated that.
we did, we were concerned that there were gonna be some kind of money taken back, and so this isn't
Sure
surprising. Yeah, sure enough, this doesn't surprise me, but I'm actually pleased with the amount that it is. I thought it might be more, so. As of right now, I feel good about that. We'll see how next month goes. The next sheet is just the explanation of those other adjustments. Again, this is the total for the year, but this is where that negative 47,000 comes from, just for that further explanation. And your next sheet, this is where I can show you where that error was. Again, I've got the March one behind it. If you want to pull it out and put them side by side, it's probably helpful. But if you look at the first line that's underlined on the April payment, it's lowercase line b. You can see that the amount of students that we have educated at JPSC the ADM there should only be 5.24. On the March payment, that same line, they accidentally put our entire ADM, the larger amount, I guess, of 450. That was the error. And if you look down further at the marked line of capital letter G, you can see how significant that change is. That's where that 700,000 difference comes from. So with the error of that number that they had placed there, we were predicted to get 746,000 added to our base cost funding, but it went down to 8,653 in April. So that's where that big jump comes from. It does take our total funding down for the year. However, our total funding for the year is still much higher than what we initially anticipated. If you go to the following page, this is going to look at our funding for the year. We can look at those numbers.
And could I also interject that remember that we're being funded at 100% this year, even though our forecast and everything was at 70%.
But yeah, the numbers initially were, and the following years, we've adjusted the 5-year forecast, so now it does match these totals for this year. But next year and the years following, I don't have us at 100% FTE. I have us at about, I think I even might have done like 68 or 69% just to be a little bit under. If you're on your summary school finance report for April, this is where it shows us our total funding for the year. Column lowercase b, this is our total. So you can see we've got a little over 6 million in total funding, plus our facilities funding, which is capital letter I, that line. And then when you factor in the other adjustments, we've got a net state funding of $6,154,948.65. Now that is before retirement and things like that, but, on the 5-year forecast, that's exactly how it looks. We've got the 6 million, the 254,000, we've got what we pay back to the state, we've got, retirements and things, so it is set up that way as well. Again, at the beginning of the year, we definitely did not predict $6 million in funding, so as of right now, that still looks great.
Yes.
Next is just the March payment, and I just wanted to show you that total amount previously in column lowercase letter b had been 6.8 million. That's where you see that $700,000 drop that we just looked at. So that's where you see that the total does come down significantly, but it's still much higher than what we initially anticipated. Does anybody have any questions over that foundation payment? The only other thing, sorry. The only other thing I have is I initially attached the administrative staff and non-administrative staff exhibits, but since have made corrections, so Ryan has the corrected ones in your folder, so these can just be ignored, yep. And that's all I've got for tonight.
Very good, thank you. Is there a motion to approve items A through C of the treasurer's report?
So move.
Okay, second. Jackie will second. Yeah. And Jackie second. And we'll have a roll, please.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. All right, we'll move on to the superintendent's report with your information.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
First thing I'd like to talk about is status of our enrollment. This sheet is found in your folder right behind exhibit B's, the 2 exhibit B's. The breakdown right now, as of yesterday, we have an enrollment of 541 students. So I'm very pleased with how our enrollment has really held steady here throughout the year and has actually increased a little bit over the last couple of months, even though we're seeing some graduates as well. We do have 41 graduates that are approved as of right now. We do have several that are pending approval. So that number is really going to climb over the next month or two. We're anticipating being over 100 graduates for the year, possibly more, 125 possibly. So the breakdown there of students, we have 538 that are within the 6-county radius, and still we have 3 that are outside of the 6 counties. So a couple months ago, we talked about surveying our students and seeing where they're finding out about Townsend being an option. So in the months of March and April, we've been adding a survey to our enrollment meetings. So on the back side of this sheet here, if you flip it over, I have a breakdown of 54 different enrollment surveys that we have gathered. And from those, 59% of the students have come from a recommendation from a friend or family member. 19% of the enrollments have come from recommendations from other schools, and those schools are listed there. 6% of our students have come from recommendation from the courts or probation officers, and 6% have come from the TCS website that they have come across or seen. Now, some of these responses did select more than one of the choices, so the percentages will add up to more than 100%. And then 35% of our students are returning or re-enrollment students. So that just gives us an idea of where students are learning about Townsend. Also, we wanted to see how effective the advertisements might be in the Town Money Saver. And none of these have checkmarked that box, which surprises me a little bit, because I've gotten a lot of feedback that, hey, I've noticed that Townsend advertisement in the Town Money Saver. We've heard a lot of feedback about that, but none of those 54 enrollments did check that box.
So does that mean we would be wise to discontinue that?
The thing is, we're using the ESSER funds that we have plenty to use towards that. And I still think that exposure is good for Townsend. I think it gets the word out about Townsend, even though none of the students have checkmarked it. Maybe it's something that we take a month or two off and maybe, come closer to the fall when school starts back up again, maybe start it up for a little bit.
Well, I would think there's no students that are actually reading the Town Money Saver, right? So
It's probably more
teenagers,
parents.
let me repeat it, teenagers are not reading it,
Yeah.
but family members are, and you know, if 59% was a recommendation from a friend or a family member, it's more likely to be someone that would browse through the money saver, you know. 60-year-old kids are not going to do the money saver. If you ask them if they even knew what it was,
That's a great point.
probably have no idea.
So it may be having a bigger impact than what we actually see. in the
Right,
survey.
yeah, so these were students that were actually surveyed,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah, if we ask the parents.
if we were to ask the parents,
Question.
so my question is, so this 54% or 54 percentage of our students is that what?
So these are just recent enrollments over.
So these are the new, okay, so these are
March.
new.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you thought about surveying?
About 10%.
Surveying the student body and figure, if we could figure out where they, I mean, just a thought, I don't know.
Actually, one of the TCS goals that we have for this year, I'm trying to put my finger on it right away, does use require. It says, establish or utilize effective lines of communication in person, electronically, virtually, with staff, students, parents, and stakeholders as measured by 75% positive ratings from staff, students, and we could easily add parents into that as well. And that's something that we try to conduct sometime in May before graduation. So that's something we could add that question to that survey. And you don't want it to be more than 4 or 5 questions, but that would be easily done.
Yeah, and I think it would show that, you know, we're reaching out to parents and, you know, we're not just sitting idle on this and you know, bring it to their attention and if those are the ones are passing this information along, I guess, you know, the more you have something in front of you, the more likely you recommend it to someone else or, you know, just kind of my thoughts. It's just, I feel like it's a good thing. If it's in front of people monthly or whatever, I think that's a good thing.
I do think that overall, the advertisements have helped with our exposure, just making people aware of Townsend being an option within the 6 towns.
Well, like you, I've had people say something to me out of it, so it's hard to.
Right, put it out to the, I thought the parents over at Monroe. They said that they had seen.
Oh, really?
advertising.
Okay, good. Good.
The other thing I wanted to add here under informational items was, I was gonna have Ashley give us just a brief update of the PBIS national conference that she went to in San Diego here last week.
We went there, it was national. We met with people from Connecticut, Michigan, Florida, Arizona. There's a lot of people from California, but the nice thing was they didn't just target traditional schools. They talked about community schools, charter schools, how to convey different messages, getting the base level on board, having the same level of communication to the students. So we want to use consistency with how we approach students, a lot more listening than attacking versus, you know what I mean? So
You want to just briefly, just for the sake of the board, describe what PBIS is?
positive
It's in-
behavior, positive behavior intervention supports, which is a huge thing the state has been pushing. We tried to go through that before, we checked the box, we were doing it, we were tier 1, we felt we were good to go. Well, tier 1, you're kind of in for a few years. It's not like you're going to be tier 4 in 2 years. It's multiple years on each level, trying to hone in from 100% of the body to 20% of the kiddos that really need that tier 2 intervention to 5% to 2%, but still implementing school-wide the tier 1 throughout. So we brought home a few books that we want to buy that have just ways to help kids express more, letting them lead the discussion more than we're leading it, and an app that is free. It's Mobi app. And that helps them track a check-in, check-out system with us, so that we're doing that with more fidelity than we are now. We're spending that time making sure that we're setting goals, following up on the goals, seeing how their day was going, more so than just noticing that they came in on a trigger. Like, they give us different ideas how to look for things in kids and how to approach them. Nice tracking mechanisms that were, why recreate the wheel when someone's already doing it and it's working. So it was fabulous. Networking, the conferencing with people, talking to people that have different values, you know, it's not like, I wouldn't say values, I want the kids to do well, but their schools operate a little differently. And just getting that was huge.
What are we doing right, Angela?
What are we doing right? How we, I think we're doing it like ish, like, because we're trying to implement it. The check-in, check-out with kids that are in the smaller entities, we're really trying to hone in, and those are our more behavioral kids that we spend a lot of time with. So we try to check in with them in the morning, set a goal for them throughout the day. Our days might get busy, we might not be able to check out with them, but a lot of the kids try to come back to us because we have the kudos cash cards that they like to receive, they like to get prizes. And I think that is what we're doing probably the best. And just the growth there will really help them, because it shows that we're not just teachers, we actually care. We're here to help you be successful, to teach you more executive functioning skills. So you might not be going to college, that's fine, but we still have to be able to work in a workplace and get along with people and not have eruptions and things like that. So I think the caring aspect to build that rapport among the kids is where we're gonna, we do well.
So where do we go? What do you think is the best direction for our staff in that, in terms of improving our implementation of PBIS?
Talking with staff, having more consistency on how we approach the kids, and maybe each staff member have like two kiddos that they really, you know, think have some need, and pick those as their check-in and check-out, so we can, you know, work with those. Making a phone call home when things are going good, so that we're not that negative Nancy calling me like, yep, it's Townsend again. We have this and your kiddo is doing it. Like, hey, you know, your kiddo just completed a course, he earned a credit, he's having a great week. Just things like that. Different ideas to do that, what I think would be our next step, because a lot of our kids and parents also didn't have good school experiences, so they already don't want to hear from us.
Yeah.
So if it's positive, oh, wait, did you really just say that? Like, cool, you made my day. But so hearing different people do those things, I thought that was good. That's something we can try. Definitely for next year. We've implemented a lot this year. The kids went through a lot of changes this year, and they're rolling with things, but I don't think one more thing they need.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, when they're testing and trying to graduate and close things up, would be that thing. But definitely a good push for next year.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say with professional development.
We're looking, yeah, like
Yeah.
getting different speakers, because if the staff just always hears from us saying like, oh, this is what we're doing, it's not what we're doing. It's a unity. It's the ship of us. This should be our culture. It shouldn't be what we're doing, what we expect. It should be natural. And if it's more natural from us, it'll be better well perceived by the kids, and I think we can touch more.
Very good. Any other questions?
So you're full of this energy, you just came from the conference, and I know you're excited, right? Like-minded people. So do you have a list? Do you have a plan? Do you have this grand idea of what you would like to see happen? Like, I know I've been to conferences and I still have notes on my phone from when I had done certain things, and it was just very exciting. I didn't want to lose any of that, and I could still go back to those
we started.
from time to time, you know, like, how do we do this, you know, and, you know, I mean, do you have, I mean,
One process chair got really sick at the end, she's been out, so like, just to reconvene to go over it, I've already approached Kelsey on some things that I want to purchase, so we can get those together. And that way, when we do have a staff and service day, we can talk about these things, have that game plan to go forward, ideas, our staff likes examples. So the more examples I can give them, the more guided instruction I think would be.
yeah, I just feel like I want you to take this excitement
I
that you have and go out there with it while you still have it.
I-
Because 2 months from now, when it's the summertime, you know what I mean, it's like, how do we keep that fire burning, you know what I mean, like, how do we?
I think it'll be easier accepted by the staff at the beginning of the school year, besides when they're cramming down right now. And like our students, the staff has gone through a lot of changes this year too. And I think they're all for the better and the kids are adapting to it. But so that'll be for Tara and I to really build up this summer. And when we have those staff days to push that forward.
Got me
When
excited.
you have your students, something that we did with the kids at one time was, because sometimes when they go home, that's when they really have a breakdown. What we had to do was write it. So they, you know, write out whatever's going on, would bring it into me the next day. I'd read it, you know, and write them a note back, you know, because they're at home and they're frustrated, not where they can get that out without having outbursts and everything, they write that. Then they know somebody's gonna read it and understand, you know, just take time to try to feel what they were feeling at that point.
100% I agree with you.
Yeah.
I pushed journaling to all kids. And I said, even if you don't want me to read it, some of the satisfaction is tearing it off. I'm like, and then you're like releasing that
Yeah,
toxic
yeah,
energy, like, so we do a lot of different strategies, but I think journaling's great, and if they want us to read it. But our tier 2 kiddos that we know that need that are usually pretty good with communicating, they just aren't receptive usually when they're at an escalated level. And that's where we need to catch them and get them down and figure that out, but that's different for every kid and every situation, because otherwise I can give you hypotheticals all day long, but we all know we all react differently at any given time.
Yeah.
So no, we'll definitely keep that in mind and write that down along with it, because we
I'm glad
have
it
plenty
was-
of notebooks that we got and
Yeah.
things like that.
But it was beneficial.
Oh, it was just, yeah, the wording just. And they did mention, another thing we did well was getting the parents to come in. Like we did our open house night.
Yeah.
They really, said that was a good thing to do, but having our PBIS stuff up on the board or in the rooms or how we do things and explaining it to parents, so it's not just wall art. This is our culture, this is what we do, these are, you know what I mean, so the parents can talk about it as well. So I thought that was good.
Yeah. Anything else? Thank you, Ashley.
No,
Thank
thanks
you
for
very
giving us
much.
the opportunity to go there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, definitely. Big thank you to both Ashley and Tara for attending that conference.
Right. Give me
Nice
a bit
thing.
of time.
The nice thing is with our PBIS leadership team is they meet very frequently and it's a continuous evolving process. So I am confident that it won't just end with that conference. What they've learned will carry into that committee and then throughout the building as well.
Wonderful.
And while we're talking about open house, you know, I'd love to do open house again this fall. And one thing I'd like to add is get some of our community organizations and resources in the building accessible to families when they come in for that open house. I brought that up at the FCFC meeting that we had last month, and it was pretty well received. So we'll start planning for that here in the next couple months, get ready for August.
And that was such a great
part
night.
of the-
I mean,
It was. Yeah.
fantastic. Oh my gosh.
So moving on here, we've got quite a few items under new business. I'm gonna try to go through these as quickly as I can, but at the same time, if you have any questions, please, do let me know. Item A is a recommendation to approve the awarding high school diplomas to the following students upon successful completion of the graduation requirements as set forth by the state of Ohio, with students listed there. Item B is a recommendation to purchase Chromebooks from Forward Edge for $39,504 as presented in the included quote, which is in your folder. Item C is a recommendation to purchase iPads and additional technology items from Apple for $10,042.95. In the included quote. Both of those items, B and C, are pertaining to MOE that we talked about earlier. Item D is a recommendation to approve a nursing contract with Erie County Health Department for the 2022-23 school year as presented. Item E is a recommendation to approve the revised version of the 2022-2023 school calendar. And the revision there is just the elimination of 2 staff days at the end of the school year. So previously, the calendar had June 5th through June 7th for staff and service days. And we decided to take 2 days off of our teacher contracts and reduce those from 184 to 182 this coming year. So as a result of that, we're going to take off 2 of the staff and service days at the end of the school year, which would have been June 6th and June 7th. That is the only change on the school calendar. Item F is a recommendation to approve summer work days for teachers at a rate of $250 per day at the discretion of the superintendent principal on an as-needed basis to assist with overcoming student learning loss in connection with COVID. Again, these expenses would be paid through our ESSER funds. Item G is a recommendation to enter into a shared service agreement with Margaret Local School District for the school resource officer services for the current school year, 21-22. This is something that was overlooked that we did not do earlier in the school year, and working with Diane Keegan, Margaret's Board of Education did approve this shared service agreement recently, so we would just need to also put it on our end. Basically, that would allow us to share the resource officer 50-50 in terms of the expenses as well. Okay, item H is a recommendation to enter a shared service agreement with Margaretta for a
Could we
science.
back up just
Yep.
1 second?
Yep.
So would it be prudent for us to enter into, because Margareta only voted on this year, not
Yeah, it's only for 21-22, and the reason for that is we're going to consider possibly having the Erie County Sheriff's Office bill both schools separately next year, kind of like the health department does with the school nurse. So that might be something we talk about tomorrow with Margaretta.
Did they send us their signed copies?
I do that.
Okay. Yeah, that's what signed copies.
Item H is a recommendation to enter into a shared service agreement with Margaretta for a science tutor and also EMIS coordinator services for the 22-23 school year. And their Board of Education did vote on that agreement last night. The recommendation, and item I is a recommendation to increase the base of the teacher salary schedule by 1% for the 2022-23 school year and adopt the revised teacher salary scale as presented. That is also important. Okay, on to staff contracts. Item J is a recommendation to approve the following administrators for a 230-day contract for the 22-23 school year, including administrative staff Exhibit B. All eligible employee contracts will increase 1 step per current school board salary schedules. And these would be for Ashley Hermes, Tara Kaiser, and David Stubblemeyer. As you'll see as we go through these contracts for staff, we have included a lot of detail for everyone. That's twofold. There's 2 reasons for that. One is to be very transparent with the public as to the funds that we are using. And then secondly, is to be clear as to what we're voting on in case we need to go back and look at previous board minutes down the road. Item K is a recommendation to approve the following certified staff for contracts for the 2022-2023 school year, including administrative staff Exhibit B. All eligible employee contracts will increase 1 step per current board approved salary schedules. And this would be for Amanda Apple, Karen Burke, Jill Carney, Zach Coe, Drew Crabtree, who would be a new hire as intervention specialist, David Faulkner, Kristen Fallow, Kristen Kovac, Ken Miller, Johanna Piaski,
You forgot.
Janelle Kavaleski, Sherry Ransom, who is also a new hire, actually a returning employee, previously worked for Townsend as an intervention specialist. Also on the next page, Tim Raw and Chris Shear. Item L is a recommendation to approve the following classified staff for contracts for the 2022-23 school year, including non-administrative staff to the fee. All eligible employee contracts will increase one step per current board approved salary schedules. Carrie Bernard, Barb Boyd, Robin Dar, Bob Hamilton, Cindy Orshowski, Ryan Zirkle, Larry Zirkle. Item M is a recommendation to approve the following part-time salary contracts for the 2022-23 school year. Again, these are part-time salary contracts. Debbie Nikoloff, testing coordinator, and Shannon Wilson, dean of students. And that is a new added position there, part-time. Shannon Wilson is dean of students. It's a recommendation to approve the following part-time hourly contracts for the 2022-2023 school year. Sandy Carroll, Lyle Faulkner, Chad Shawoko, Ann Stream, Charlene Margitek, Tori Ruiz, Betty Schweifer, Becky Wiedenhaft, and Carrie Wiedenhaft. Item O is a recommendation to approve the following supplemental contracts for the 2022-2023 school year. CBI coordinator Ken Miller, CBI supplemental David Faulkner, and ESL coordinator / Spanish interpreter Tori Ruiz. And then to round it out here with this section, item P is a recommendation to approve the purchase service of EMA support as needed at an hourly rate of $50 per hour from Deanna Faber.
Is there a motion to approve items A through P under superintendent's report? I'm sorry, moved by Israel, second by Dora. Any discussion or questions? We'll have the roll, please.
Mr. Palumbo,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee. Yes. Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Okay, and a couple of other items here, actually one more item. Item Q is recommendation to approve the following certified staff for contracts for the 2022-2023 school year, including non-administrative staff and the fee. All eligible employee contracts will increase one step per current board approved salary schedules. And these contracts were for Hannah Edwards and Nicole Lambertus.
Is there a motion to approve item Q of superintendent's report?
I'll move.
Moved by Israel, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dora. Any questions or discussion? We'll have the roll, please.
Mr. Palumbo,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee. Yes. Mrs. Smith.
Yes. And we have to note that Mr. Edwards is required to abstain.
If he does.
That's true.
If you use that home.
All right, I would like to entertain a motion to briefly move into executive session for the purpose of compensation of personnel by a public employee.
I move.
Moved by Ken, is there a second?
Second.
We'll have the roll, please.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Palumbo,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee. Yes. Mrs. Smith.
Yes.